Today we're going to start, whenever we do a pruning demo, I usually run through a series of things. Basically what I'll do is I'll start with like the basic tools and equipment that you kind of need. We'll start with the most common. Usually we'll do roses. I'll sort of try to follow the guide to a certain degree. And if you have questions while I'm speaking, that's great, because chances are if I'm not explaining myself properly, if you've got a question, probably other people have the same question as well. So don't be afraid to interrupt, and let me know that you're not following part of what I'm doing. So that's something that actually helps everybody. So I guess the first thing to start off with is sort of why we prune and the reason for it and the time of year that we do it. Typically everybody associates pruning, especially the pruning that we normally would do, is to be done in February, March. But pruning is something that kind of gets done all year round. It's not one specific time of the year. The pruning that you do should be specific to the plant that you're working with, not so much the timing. It just works out that for timing reasons, probably 75% of the pruning we do is in the early part of spring, which is like February, March. So that's kind of why we sort of run these classes now. But pruning kind of continues basically all year round. One of the things that we have to sort of understand is what we use to prune and things like that, and the sizing. Most of what we'll prune with will be basically just done with a regular pear pruner. That will probably prune up 90% of what we're going to do. There's hedge shears for when we're trimming up hedges, and we have a lot of small material to prune. There's loppers, such as these. There's compound action loppers. Difference with these is, this is a ratchet lopper. Compound action lopper looks much the same. This is a ratchet lopper for if you're cutting big branches that take as much strength. Compound action pruners will have a lever in here, so again, cutting bigger branches, it'll make it a lot easier to cut. Most times what you want to do is the opening that you see in here, the branch should be no bigger than half the size of that opening. It should be actually a little bit less. When you get into large areas of pruning, you basically will want to use a saw. Any large branches, anything basically over 1.5 inches, you use a saw to cut out, which is basically when you're into large shade trees and fruit trees, things like that. That's what you want to use. There's varying prices on everything. This is a $9 pair. This is probably a $20 pair. We have them up to $80 to $100 pairs of pruners. It doesn't make a lot of difference the cost of the pruner you buy if you don't keep them sharp. A sharp $8 pruner is much more effective than a dull $100 pruner. Dull $100 pruner is not very effective at all. The only difference in price will be how long they stay sharp once you do sharpen them. The better the steel, obviously, the longer they stay. Buy just a pair that's in a price range that you're comfortable with. If you're going to lose them every 3 weeks, then I'd probably buy the cheap ones. You're going to keep them for the rest of your life and you don't lose stuff, then buy an expensive pair. But make sure they're sharp and take them to somebody that'll sharpen them. Or, I can explain afterwards how to sharpen these. It's pretty basic. But if you don't keep them sharp, you can't prune very well. So really, buy what's comfortable, that you're comfortable with. If you don't keep them sharp, don't keep them oiled, keep the rust off of them. If you're not going to maintain them, buy the least expensive ones and then just keep throwing them out and buying new ones. That's probably your better bet. So that's all I'm going to really explain to you about tools. You'll see me use them as the day goes on. But you need certain amounts. The basic thing, if you want to start with anything, just make sure you got a good pair of pruners. Secondly, I'm going to explain a little bit today about spraying, because we are into February. Typically these aren't things that we would normally do during the season, but because we're in the dormant season, nothing is leafed out this time of year. Most of the sprays and stuff that we'll use now are basically very, I would say, they're not biological, but they're basically, what they are is very safe to use. Most of the toxic pesticides and fungicides have been taken off the market. What we're using now is ones that have been around for probably the last 250 years. Still probably the most effective, and if you're going to spray anything on your plants to prevent both insects and disease, spraying while they're dormant is the best time. Because if you look at the plant right now, it doesn't have any foliage, the amount of material you have to spray on is probably a fifth to a sixth of what you would have to spray if the plant was leafed out. So the more we can prevent disease, the more we can prevent insects, the less effort we have to put in later. And really, if you do this properly, you shouldn't really have much to worry about the rest of the season. At this time of year, the most sensible thing to probably be spraying on most of your deciduous plants is a lime sulfur dormant oil. It comes in a kit. You can buy the dormant oil separate and the oil separately as well, but they're mixed together, sprayed on while the plant is dormant. The oil is basically a fine grade petroleum oil, really is what it is. And that will penetrate the egg cases of any scale insects or any overwintering caterpillars, those kind of things. It actually penetrates the egg cases and kills the insects. It stops them before they start, which is the preferred way to do it. The lime sulfur dormant oil will get rid of a lot of your diseases. It'll kill the moss and lichen that grows in the trees. Although that really doesn't hurt them, it makes them look a little bit unsightly, but it will also get rid of a lot of the disease problems that are there as well. Certain things like some of the cherries and plums, maybe some of the dogwoods and maples. We also spray them with a product called Bordeaux, which is copper spray. So that tends to be a good preventative for a lot of diseases that affect the maples, stone fruits, things like that as well. I mean, you see the products we're using is basically horticultural oils. They were used in the 1800s. Sulfur's been around since the 1700s, so is copper. You know, these aren't things that are brand new. These are natural occurring elements that we found to be, in the long run, still the most effective products to use. So if you're going to use something, you want to use something relatively safe and you know, that's more environmentally friendly. These would be the products that we're probably looking at. Because you know, the end result is they're effective and they're safe to use. The other thing that we get asked a lot is when you're pruning, to use whether we should use a pruning paste, like when you cut different size branches, how big the branch is before you have to put a pruning paste and stuff like that on. As a rule of thumb, normally at this time of year, and most times, we never put on a paste. If you prune properly and your pruners are sharp and they're not dull, there's no real need to put on a paste. If you're fixing a wound or if the branch is very large and you're uncomfortable with it, we usually recommend either a paint or we have a graphene seal, and this company also makes a pruning seal as well, but they're latex based. They're not the black tar type emulsions that we used to see. The problem with the black tar emulsions is that they actually kill the tissue around where you cut, so it actually dies back even further. So where we find the latex products don't do that. They allow them to seal over and heal better. And latex also stretches as the tree grows, so you end up with a little bit longer life on them as well. So if you feel the need and you do want to coat them with something, use a latex-based sealer. It's by far the best. So just don't. We've kind of went away from those petroleum-based asphalt tar emulsions that we used to use. So really, that's what it comes down to. Very seldom should you ever need to use this stuff anymore.